Howdy guys, it's Joe here, and I just got off that Nintendo Switch to talk to you guys a little bit more about Orisa and just talk about how good this character feels like in solo queue and how much she can actually carry in solo queue. As well, I just want to talk about the general strength of the character and just kind of where she's doing really well, and if you should be picking up this character if you want to play solo queue or I guess even duo queue or anything like that. Anyways, with that said, let's just get on to some of the positives. I'll talk about a few of the negatives and kind of everything in between. As far as the positives though, the first one, and I feel like one of the most important things about this character that will make her very good in a lot of situations, is the fact that she does have a lot of damage, mainly just, with the regular fire. Now, I feel like that's very important if you want to play a carry. Of course, you can carry with people that don't have any damage at all. We see this with a lot of supports, but it is quite a bit easier in a lot of situations to carry if you do have some damage, if you can get the damage out yourself. And Orisa, of course, does not fail in that regard at all. It's just so much damage and so much consistent damage at such a far range that can melt decently through tanks. It's really quite ridiculous about this character and feels very strong. Not quite overpowered, but definitely strong. And if you can get used to the projectile based firing, I feel like you can quite easily deal a lot of damage and carry quite a few of your games. As well with this, one of the things that I feel like is especially going to make her good as far as picking up a tank is the fact that she can play very defensively, put down that wall and deal a ton of damage, and as well she can go really offensively, put down that wall and still deal a really good amount of damage. As well with this, just mainly the fact that you can deal damage yourself while you're also protecting your teammates. You can do both at the same time and your damage is not very low. It's really quite decent. Again, I feel like this is important. Having consistent damage for yourself at solo queue can just help you get up there, and as well being able to protect your team while dealing out that damage, that'll help you in even more situations. Now, the second thing that I feel like is also pretty good about her is the fact that her shift, or, her armor, makes it that she can counter single pushes and single huge pushes really well. Being able to counter all CC and being able to get a huge damage reduction while being able to just put down your projected barrier somewhere, I feel like that's something that is especially going to be very useful on this character. Most of the time when you're playing ranked and when you're playing these game modes, people just wait, they save all their ultimates, then they go for all of them at once, as that's usually the best idea to do it. But if they do that and you're this character, well, you can just counter that CC, try to protect your teammates, go for your own stuff, do all the damage that you can possibly do, pull the enemies away from you, maybe if it's a Genji or something. And overall, it does feel pretty nice to be able to get through that, and I feel like especially in solo queue, maybe in duo queue, being able to protect your teammates while, they're kind of getting whomped, and just being able to get out of these huge combos is going to be extremely important, as a lot of times people probably won't go, ability, they're just going to try to go for that big whomp, and yeah, this does counter that pretty well, so something that I feel like is probably going to help you quite a bit here. After that, I also do want to mention that she's very safe and very consistent, and that's the thing that I feel like is especially going to make her really strong. Being safe it's always nice. You can be at very far ranges. We saw this with McCree for quite a while with Soldier. Being safe is just amazing. It makes it that you can't really be countered way too easily. It's just overall kind of hard to counter you, and especially being a safer tank, that makes it even better for yourself, and it makes it that you won't die as long, so you can have a lot more impact on your solo queue games. But as well with that, she's very consistent. The DPS is a very consistent amount of DPS. It's not quite as good as Hitscan, but it's very similar, so it's still pretty good. The shielding is very consistent, has quite a low cooldown overall, and of course everything else about her kit is pretty consistent too, that being the ultimate and that being the shielding. Just everything's pretty good together, and really there's no situations where you're gonna have an ability that's not really way too useful. Everything comes together really well, everything works in the majority of situations, and all the time she should be doing at least pretty decently. So if you put in the work to learn this character in solo queue, you should be doing pretty well with them on the majority of the time. Next, another huge benefit about playing with this character when you're playing solo queue is that she feels very good on the majority of maps. Maybe not some of the King of the Hill maps, but most of the maps she feels really good. And I feel like that is especially important because if you are playing mainly one character, it's nice to be able to play on a lot of the maps. And as well with this, you should be very consistently doing well on the majority of the maps in the game. When you're playing solo, you want to be consistent, you want to be able to do well everywhere you can go, and as we see in games like Super Smash Bros, of course, having good map matchups can really win you a lot of games, and when you aren't really way too bad on most maps, that can make you really quite good on the rest of the maps. So yeah, I'd say that's also a really cool thing about her. From here as well, I'm going to say that she also combos really well with pretty much all the tanks right now, or at least the best tanks. Reinhardt, Roadhog, Zarya. Of course, there is the dive comp, Winston, and Diva, but the ones that are mainly played, she does super well with. Just complements their DPS, complements their shielding, and overall is going to work with the majority of the tanks that you are going to be seeing right now. Maybe when the dive comps comes on just a little bit more, we'll see a little bit less of this character, but for now, you can deal a lot of damage, you can protect your teammates, you can go next to your own teammates that are being protected, and then you can try to break through the enemy Reinhardt shield, break through the enemy that's playing Orisa herself. I feel like that's going to be a really nice thing about her. And of course, if you're playing Orisa and someone like Roadhog, you can burst through those freaking Reinhardt shields so fast. That's probably going to be one thing that a lot of people try out. Get through that Reinhardt shield, hook the Reinhardt, kill him. that might work out. We're gonna have to wait to see, but yeah, I feel like she works very well with a lot of the tanks, which is especially great in solo queue, because then you don't have to worry about people not playing the people that you are very good with, because yeah, you're pretty much always gonna be doing okay. And then the final benefit that I feel like is pretty nice about this character is the fact that her damage boost, just using it before you're engaging, is actually really quite safe, and it can win you quite a bit of fights. Maybe it isn't quite as impactful as, you know, a Graviton Surge, but it comes out quite a bit faster, and you do, of course, have your own little mini Graviton Surge anyways. The damage is really nice. A lot of times, if people try to go to the backline to try to kill it, they're just going on a suicide run, and it doesn't really feel like one of those things like a shield gen that is so important to kill immediately, so a lot of people aren't going exactly for it. But if they don't, your team does a lot more damage, you can win a lot of fights. I feel like it's something that is kind of in an awkward place of being very, very good, but also being very, very counterable. But as it is right now, I feel like it's pretty strong. As well with this, you do have to remember the fact that if you're playing a solo queue, people often won't be way too coordinated. They won't be able to get to your backline, won't be able to get that thing. So you can just kind of shoot it on the ground, and then a lot of times people can't get it. And as well, if you're just engaging with your team, just shoot that on the ground behind you guys. Most of the time, people won't really be looking behind you to see if you have your ultimate up or if you use their ultimate. So you should be pretty safe with that, and I feel like that's a thing that works especially well when you're playing solo queue and when you're just playing this game mode. Now, to some of the bad stuff about the character, and to some of the things that I feel like she probably won't be as good about in solo queue. First off, I feel like she gets countered really hardcore by dive comps, at least if the dive comps are in one of these two categories. The players are consistently on you, they just keep attacking, you know, they dive once and then just keep attacking. Or on the other hand, if they dive, they retreat, they dive, they retreat, they dive, they retreat really, really quickly. Now, I feel like this is really not the best for your character and really makes it quite hard to play her in a lot of cases, because your abilities are really good when people are at medium range or away from you, but once they get melee range, you don't have much you can do. You can try to pull them away with your right click, but that won't really do way too much. Your damage is really good, but it's not burst damage like a lot of these other characters that get close up, and a lot of the other tanks that once they're melee range, they can still do pretty good against your character. Now, I'm saying that really she's only bad against dive comps that keep going in, because if the dive comp just goes in once in a while, then of course you can just give yourself that armor, anti-CC, and actually do pretty decently against them. But if you happen to waste that, or if they just keep going in and there's no way that you can possibly have it up enough, you're screwed in a lot of situations. So maybe if your Orisa is a dive comp, don't go for it. Luckily right now there aren't really way too many dive comps, but I guess we're just gonna have to see for that. So there you go. As well with this, another thing that I want to mention that kind of hurts her in solo queue is the fact that she cannot actually dive herself way too much. A lot of the other tanks, that be it Reinhardt, Roadhog, even Zarya, Winston, and of course D.Va, they can all dive decently well. You know, they can go in, they can go ham. But this character's not exactly the same. You know, she doesn't have something that flies her into the enemy team, and she doesn't have a lot of these really good close range, melee range weapons. She's good at that medium range, so it can be hard at times to know how you're actually going to engage. A lot of the times you want to poke, you want to try to get off a kill and then go in with your team and then put down a really nice barrier, get someone like a Bastion behind it, get someone like a Junkrat, Pharah, really whatever you can get, and then just continue from there. But getting an initial push can be kind of hard as her, and it can be really just hard to dive in to get kills, and especially if you're with a full dive comp, you're not going to be having way too much fun for the most part. And then finally, one of the things that I feel like is a negative is that she doesn't really have any of those wow play of the game moments that are huge carrying play moments, which I feel like can be kind of bad sometimes. When you're playing someone like Genji, of course, you can get a super good ultimate, wipe the enemy team, and just swipe all the way through them. You can't really do that as Orisa quite as much. With that said, your consistency, I feel like, does make up for this quite a bit, and probably even more so. Because if you're playing a character that is always consistent, you're going to be consistently winning a lot of games, consistently doing the best you can, consistently ranking up. Maybe you won't be able to win every single game because you could get janked, you could have people that are doing these amazing plays that wipe you out, but for the most part, you should be doing okay. Still though, I do want to mention the fact that in solo queue, a lot of times people are like, you know, you gotta get those big plays to carry your team, and it might be kind of hard to get as this character. Of course, you can do some really cool and jank stuff with your right click, but other than that, you're just more of a consistent DPS character that's a nice tank than someone that can go for, like, for example, a clutch hook, or for example, a clutch Reinhardt ultimate. Any of the other abilities that a lot of the tanks have, you don't have something like that, which I feel like is a really cool thing about the game and about the character, but it's just something that you want to remember. Anyways, though, in the end, I'm going to say she's pretty good when you're playing solo queue. I honestly feel like she's going to be one of the tanks that's a very nice pick to bring into solo queue if you want to decide to main the character. With that said, though, I will say, as always, and especially with this character, she feels a lot better with the team. If you can duo queue, even just that, have someone like a Soldier or a Bastion on your team, oh, that is so good. Even in Ana, that is just so powerful being able to do that, because you work so well with your teammates. She does so well duo queuing, trio queuing. I feel like with full 6-mans, she's going to do really well there as well. Overall, I feel like the character will be very good in a lot of situations. As well with this, of course, being able to shield with a Ryan shield, if you can happen to do that, duo Q with someone that does that, that'll help your team win quite a few games just simply by that alone, because it's very hard to beat if the enemies aren't ready or if the enemies don't have a Bastion that knows what he's doing. Anyways, though, that's all I'm going to say. She's overall pretty good solo queue. I will say, maybe pick her up, maybe try her a bit, and if you haven't already played her on the PTR, give her a little bit of a try, and if you're on Xbox or if you're on PS4, just wait a little bit, she'll be coming out, and give her a try there as well. Anyways, there is at least my own opinions. If you guys do agree, make sure to tell me in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit me up with a like, subscribe if you want to see any more future content like this, and as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.